Hello, and welcome back to the More Money Podcast. This is your host, Jessica Morehouse, and this is episode 381 of the podcast. And I've got a special episode for you. This is I was going to say live. It's not a live. It's pre-recorded, but I did it live in person with my guest, and I haven't done that in years. And I feel like it was such a, I kind of miss doing the in-person interviews. Believe me, if I had more resources and let's just say resources, I would have a video podcast. I would do these things in person. I am just not that wealthy or famous to have that. I'm not a celebrity, basically, so I can't really do that. So virtual is how I am able to have guests from all over the world on the show. But luckily, my next guest lives in my city of Toronto, and I'm talking about Adrian Barr. You may already be familiar with him because he has over 100, I think now it's like 120,000 subscribers on YouTube, maybe even more by this point. And he is the founder and host of the YouTube channel Canadian in a T-shirt. And, he talks about, unsurprisingly, Canadian personal finance, investing, taxes, credit cards, how to start a business, anything to do with finance, entrepreneurship, side hustles, everything. But for Canadians specifically, which the feedback I get most often from listeners is, oh, hey, I found your podcast and I was looking for something Canadian, and there's so much American stuff out there. And yeah, that's true. And so hey, I'm not knocking it. There's some great personal finance content by Americans. I mean, I have a lot of American, friends who I've known for years that are doing some amazing stuff, who've been featured on this podcast. But sometimes you want, some Canadian stuff, some Canadian content, something that's applicable to you. And that is what we're going to talk all about, and then some. So you're in for a treat. So without further ado, let's get chatting. But before I get to that interview, I want to share a little bit more information about my online course that you may not even know about, but it's been around for almost 3 years, called Wealth Building Blueprint for Canadians. It's a course I built specifically with you Canadian listeners in mind who want to learn how to do passive investing like I've been talking about for years on the show. If you want to get rich slowly, invest for the long term, you don't want to day trade or dabble in something speculative like cryptocurrency or some hot stocks that you find online. You just want to make sure you can retire one day or, save enough for buying a home. And this course can help you. It is specifically about all the fundamentals you need to know about investing as a Canadian. But then I also show you how to build a strategic investment plan and then how to invest in your own portfolio by way of either using a robo-advisor or doing it on your own from scratch. There's lots of worksheets and calculators and spreadsheets that you will not find anywhere else on the internet, hence why I had to build them myself. But also get lifetime access, as well as access to the private Facebook group, my monthly Q&A sessions for students, a private email you can contact me with, and you also get a private one-on-one session with me when you finish the course as well. There are so many benefits to the course, so I highly recommend going to jessicamorehouse.com/course to find more information and to apply. Again, that's jessicamorehouse.com/course to learn more and to apply. Welcome, Adrian, to the More Money Podcast. So excited to have you on. We've tried to record this intro several times, and we keep on getting distracted and talking about other things.
Right.
We have a podcast.
We can go all day,
to record.
yeah.
We can be here all day. I know, we are talkers. Yep. Well, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Your second ever podcast. I feel very grateful and very exciting for anyone who's listening. You were in my studio, and by studio, I mean my basement with my toilet paper. But still, it's a studio nonetheless. And yeah, this is exciting. I have not recorded an in-person interview, I've got to say, in like 5 years. Like there was a time where I'd even, for a few special people, I traveled to them.
Wow.
I mean, within Toronto. I'm not going outside of the city, but
you have standards.
I've got standards. But yeah, it's crazy. So I'm so excited that you're here. We're doing it live.
Thank you.
And for anyone who doesn't know, you've got the really awesome YouTube channel called Canadian in a T-shirt. Let's start there. What's with the name? Where did that stem from?
Sure. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for having me. It's my absolute pleasure being here. Again, this is my second ever podcast. I'm totally new to this kind of world and kind of just doing things more live, unscripted, kind of like, unfiltered. Mm-hmm. So this is fun, and I'm really excited to be here. Yay. So thank you so much. So I started my YouTube channel, Canadian in a T-shirt, over 4 years ago now. Wow. And the reason why, the reason why I named it that way, well, there's a few reasons. One is when I first started on YouTube, there were only like maybe 2 or 3 other Canadian-focused finance YouTubers out there that I knew of. mostly the vast majority of the other finance YouTubers were US focused. And they were, a lot of them were great. They taught, good kind of fundamental general topics, but a lot of them were more like US focused, like, Roth IRAs, 401ks, all that kind of stuff, which Canadians, it's like speaking Greek to them, right? So I wanted to emphasize that I am Canadian, and I wanted to only ever really just dial in on the Canadian audience, right? So Canadian in a t-shirt, I want to emphasize that I'm Canadian on day one. And then in a t-shirt because that's who I am. Like I'm not a fancy guy wearing a fancy suit, sitting in a fancy office on the 50th floor. I'm just an average Canadian, an average guy. I wear a t-shirt, I wear jeans. Like I'm not trying to impress people. I'm not trying to use big fancy terminology to make myself sound smart and to like intimidate other people. I speak down to earth. I want to be as like relatable and approachable and accessible to people who are starting from square one. So that's why I started Canadian in a t-shirt. Also, I mean, funny story, it was another kind of side quest, I guess, was I wanted to be like, I love collecting like geeky t-shirts with like, like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all that kind of stuff on. And a lot of my friends were actually designing t-shirts. So I wanted to like sell their t-shirt designs. And it's been 4 years later and I haven't set up merch yet. So even though that was like one of my first like revenue streams that I planned out, 4 years down the line, I haven't really,
Yeah, you should probably do that.
I really should.
There's actually a way with, not to plug Shopify, but you can set up a Shopify shop and connect it to your YouTube.
100%. I know that the barrier to entry is so low, and there's no excuse for me not to have done it yet. Yeah. But I keep getting caught up in other projects and stuff.
Canadian in a t-shirt.
It sells itself.
It sells
really.
itself.
Like the work is already done. So I have no excuse. It's probably one of my biggest sources of embarrassment, the fact that I haven't done this yet. But it's coming. Hopefully by maybe by Christmas.
Yeah.
Maybe for the Christmas season. You never know.
I feel like that's a good idea.
I can't make any promises, so don't hold me to it. But
people check and you're like, still not there. That's amazing. That's awesome. And honestly, like only 4 years, and you've I just checked your subscribers. You have like 140,000.
Yeah.
You're gonna be reaching 200K soon.
Oh, I don't know about that, but it's.
I mean, do you get a special plaque for every 100K, or is it no?
So when I reached 100K, which was I think January or December, just this past couple months ago. Well, I guess now 9 months ago. Yeah, almost a year ago now. That was for me a huge milestone, right? So you get the silver plaque from YouTube when you reach 100K. The next plaque is 1 million. You get a gold plaque. And I mean, Canada has 40 million people. Yeah. So I doubt that I'm going to be able to reach 1 million Canadians.
That's a big
jump. I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. Right. But hey, you know what? You never know. I've been doing this for 4 years now, and I still love it. Yeah. So I plan on doing this until they kick me out, really.
Yeah.
So maybe one day I'll reach the 1 mil plaque. But at this point, it's kind of like, I don't know, subscribers. It's kind of more like a vanity metric. I don't.
100% is.
And I think we agree on this. Like, we don't really care about like how many subscribers we have, how many followers we have. We would rather have like a loyal and engaged following, right? Even if it's a smaller following. Yeah. I'd rather have 10,000 ride or dies who watch every video and comment on every video and like interact with me on a daily basis, right? Yeah. That's way better than having 500,000 strangers and they only watch sporadically once in a while, right?
And also I find with the people that do have those bigger channels, the trolls and the critics or the bots. I mean,
the bots are endless. My goodness, yeah.
I know. Yeah. So I'm curious, just out of just personal curiosity, because hopefully one day in 10 years I'll get my 100K plaque. Does Google reach out to you to be like, hey, we saw that, and then they is that how it happens?
So they sent me an email when I maybe it was a week or two after you reached 100K. So they want to make sure that you didn't buy the followers or whatever to get that. Because I know there's a few of my kind of friends or colleagues who are really close to 100K, and they're trying to do anything they can to kind of bump up. I'm saying just be patient. You're gonna get there. Anyway, so after a couple of weeks after you reach 100K, you get an email from YouTube, from Google, and they say here, enter your name. It will send you the plaque. Here's the address, right? And then a couple, maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, it came in the mail. A big black box with Google on it, and then it was exciting. And it's shiny, it's a silver shiny plaque.
Ooh, is it heavy?
Not really. It's very light. It's very light. Yeah. But I'm always, every time I put it in the back, on my bookshelf behind my studio, I'm always worried it's going to tip over. But so I need to kind of set up something to stick it in place. But
I wonder, do you know why some YouTubers have over 100K? I've seen some people that have 200K and they don't have the check mark. Is that a different thing? The check mark in the back? There's some people that don't have the check mark.
That was also, once you reach, I think it was 100K
some
threshold.
Some people don't have it. I don't know why.
Interesting. I'm not sure about that.
No, it's a tangent. That has nothing to do with anything.
I didn't have to apply for that. I think that the check mark just happened. Yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
Instagram check mark, I had to pay for that. Yeah.
You know what? But hey, do you have less like spammy kind of things?
No,
right?
It's worth the money, and it's a business expense.
And I think it's fine. Like it's I believe me, if I could have paid for it, when I had all of my spam accounts, I sure as heck would have.
I remember that there was a time where I think I wanted to tag you or something in a picture, and there was 7 Jessica Morehouse Instagram accounts.
It was
I'm like, which one is her? I follow you, so I know.
It was getting a bit crazy. Yeah, that's wild. So you started your channel 4 years ago, which is amazing. What was the goal? Was it just a hobby? Because like I know now this is what you do full time. This is your career, but before you were working. And what did you do for work? And did it have anything to do with personal finance?
No. So again, my YouTube channel started purely as a passion project. So I was working. I mean, my career has been a roller coaster of I wanted to be a cardiac surgeon at one point, a quantum physics professor at one point, but for the last three and a half years of my career, I was working as an AI, artificial intelligence, like software engineer.
I feel like that's a good career. That's
I loved it.
It still is. That's like a good career.
I loved my job.
Right? It's all about AI right now. What did you do?
Like it's funny, like in a lot of ways, I could be making way more money if I was sticking with AI but again, there's no amount of money for me that's worth working for someone else again. Yeah, once you're your 100%. Own boss, oh my god, that freedom.
It's literally their only motivation I have to work.
Right? Like I know who I am. I know my capabilities. I'm a workaholic no matter what. Yeah, right? Yeah. If I'm gonna be a workaholic, I want all those blood, sweat, and tears to be
worth it for some.
I want to be the one to reap those rewards, right? Yeah. So I when I started, I was an AI engineer. Nothing to do with finance, right? But what I did was I would we would basically do like 3 to 4 month projects where we would hire a new batch of co-op students. So every semester, every 3 to 4 months, we'd hire like between 6 to 10 co-op students. And I was kind of like the unofficial manager of all of them, right? And what I really like to do was every Thursday I would do like little like kind of like unofficial lunch and learn sessions where I would teach them like soft skills, like how to write a resume, interview skills, that kind of thing, right? But I also taught them about like the fundamentals of finance, like how a credit card works, how taxes work, how investing works. And the students ate that up.
Because no one tells anybody.
No one ever taught them that.
Like I wish someone told me
that.
Yeah.
And they loved it. And like after every semester, a new batch of co-ops came in, I realized I was kind of giving the same speech again and again. And I'm like, I mean, if I'm giving the same speech, why not just kind of like, cement these lessons in video format? Yeah. So I did that and I put them up on YouTube. I never expected anyone to watch. It was purely a hobby, purely a passion project. If anything, it was more to kind of like just share with my friends and like share with my students and stuff, right? And slowly, as the months went by, I started gaining traction. I remember when I think I reached but the first like 56 subscribers were just friends and family. Yeah. And then my first subscriber number 57, his name was German Commando. And I'm like, I have no idea who this person is, but thank you so much for subscribing. Like that's amazing, right? Some random person found me and chose to follow me. And then as the months went by, I kind of grew and grew. And then about like a year and a half later, I reached the 1,000 subscribers and I got accepted into the YouTube Partners program where you can put, you get a benefit from ads. And I got my very first paycheck from YouTube. It wasn't a lot. It was like $67. But I was like, oh my god,
I'm rich.
I got a letter in the mail I got a check in the mail from Google.
I remember when they sent checks.
It was so cool.
They've changed that though. I have my like YouTube channel for my podcast, and I finally reached 1,000 views. It's not good enough anymore. I can't monitor. Like I don't make it. No, now you have to have, it's a certain amount of view
and
hours,
watch hours,
and stuff like that. And I just don't have.
So for me, it was.
But I thought it was like back in the time, it was just like 1,000 subscribers, and then you're good to go.
For me, it was I guess I was in the middle kind of segue. It was 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours. So I actually reached 1,000 subscribers before I reached the 4,000 watch hours.
So you're like waiting.
Yeah, exactly, right. So and then I was still working full time for another year, 2 years after that. And I got to the point where I was stretched so thin. I was working 60 hours a week on my job. I also had other side businesses.
Oh, really?
And then I was working another like 30 plus hours a week on YouTube.
What were your side businesses?
I did tutoring. I still did some contract software development, contract web development gigs. Yeah. At one point, I had a modeling gig for a while.
No, what kind of modeling? Like clothing or
like for art studios, like art modeling. Yeah, so like holding poses and stuff, right? So that was kind of fun, and it was a good story. I mean, it was a good workout. Wow. Fun way to kind of meet people and make some good money. It was a great job while I was a student.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, so I always had multiple things going on, right? Yeah. And I was at the point where I was stretched so thin, and with YouTube and the YouTube ad revenue and affiliate income and all that kind of stuff, right? I was at the point where I was making enough, nowhere near as much as my job, obviously, but enough that I could reasonably kind of cover my living expenses. And this was probably still in the middle of pandemic, like lockdowns.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends and close friends were actually like losing their jobs.
Of course. Yeah.
And here I am. I'm feeling like I'm at the point where like I want to voluntarily quit my really good job.
Yeah. You're like, ooh.
And I felt guilty for that, but I knew it was a risk.
Yeah.
Right. But I made the decision, and I'm so glad I did. And also for me, it was a risk for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I had confidence that my employer would be happy to take me back anytime, right?
Nice. Yeah, of course. They're like, this is a growing industry.
Exactly.
We need all of our AI experts.
Exactly. So I felt comfortable taking that risk, but it definitely was scary.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did. Like now, I'm still working nonstop.
So it's been a couple of years since you left.
Yeah. So now I've been full time about 2 years now.
Oh wow.
So like I don't take weekends off. I'm working day and I'm always plugged in, right?
I remember those
I
days.
have to start to like reel that.
We'll have a chat about
down.
work-life balance.
I need
after
to work.
this.
I've been working on that for years, and
we need to. Yeah, I've got a book actually you need to read. I have a guest on my show, and I don't know if it's going to be after this episode or before it. But anyways, I have a guest who wrote the book, The Good Enough Job, and it's incredible, and you need to read it.
I think so. I think I'm the prototype.
You need to read
that.
Yeah. No, that reminds me of me quitting my full-time job and doing a million things and not taking weekends. And then I don't want you to burn out. Because
I've been through burnout multiple times.
Yeah,
right?
we don't want.
I've already
and you know how bad it is.
It's not
we don't
fun.
Want to. No,
it's so
we don't want to do that again.
and
It's awful. It's the worst feeling in the world.
And then I feel like I'm a bad friend. I'm not seeing my family. I'm like neglecting my health, like everything, right? And
we'll have a chat. I've got some solutions for you.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
But with that, I'm curious. You've been doing this for 2 years. What have you learned? Because I know a lot of people listening. You see this on YouTube and social media. All this people tell like quit your job and be a content creator. People in I was talking to someone the other day, and they're like, young people in school, like in high school or middle school, they aspire to be a content creator, an influencer now. And I'm like, that is like in my view, I'm like, the world's ending.
No.
So that's terrible.
When I was a kid, it was like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a rock star. I want to be a soccer player.
Yeah, or
now
the most it's like an actor.
Now I want to be Mr. Beast. You're not going to be Mr. Beast.
No one can be Mr. Beast. And I don't know if I'd want to be Mr. Beast. He looks also, he does a lot. Maybe too much.
Yeah, and it's a lot of pressure. And like the thing, for me, I don't want to have like 50 million subscribers.
No.
I want to be like very marginally famous in the sense that every once in a while I get recognized on the street, but I only get recognized by people who like me, by fans, right?
I don't want to be recognized with someone who hates my videos.
I don't want to be like Kanye West where half the people love me, half the people hate me, right? I want to be able to go to a movie, enjoy myself,
This is why we do what we want, because we want to be loved.
Yeah, exactly, right.
That's ultimately what we're doing. Something in our childhood made us not feel good enough, and now we're just trying to find that love externally. Oh my God, no. Maybe not. But so what has your experience been as like a content creator, starting
full-time?
From scratch, like going from doing it as a hobby to full-time? What was that experience, and what have you changed in order to, I don't know, improve your revenue so you can, make maybe not as much as your last job, or maybe that's the goal, is like, I want to meet that or what have you.
Right. So, well, for me, it's interesting. Like, it's kind of a bit of a dichotomy, because in one area, I was always treating it as a business in the sense that I was always keeping all receipts. I was doing tax deductible business expenses.
Obviously, you're a finance person. Of course you're doing it.
I was tracking everything, all the analytics, right? So I was always had that kind of like, mentality of at any given moment, I know exactly what my net income is for the month and all that kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, I also really don't treat it like a business in the sense that this has always been a passion project. And it's still something I'm passionate about. Like I don't want to get to the point where I feel like I'm dreading filming a video.
No.
It does happen once in a while where like I'm just not feeling it. I'm exhausted.
That's
but I
normal,
need to produce content.
It is a job.
It is.
Right?
It really is.
And so sometimes it feels like a job. That's okay.
But you asked me like what has really changed, and to be honest, nothing really. Like the thing that
Are you just
loved,
like making more videos? Is that the biggest shift? Or?
Not really. I mean, honestly, the frequency of my videos hasn't really fluctuated. It hasn't really been. It's nowhere near as scheduled as you. I think you have like a weekly upload schedule.
Just for the podcast, not for the YouTube channel. Let me tell you, it's been pretty desolate on the channel this year.
For me, I try to do every 2 weeks. I'll make a public video, and then kind of in between, like maybe once or twice a month, I'll make a members only video. But like the thing is, like, even from day one, my favorite aspect of the whole YouTube gig was the engagement with the audience and like responding to comments, answering questions.
Do you do that like every day?
To this day, I still spend at least 2 to 3 hours every single day responding to comments on YouTube. And I know that, like, and people have told me this, viewers have told me, other YouTubers told me, like, you're crazy, like no one else does.
No, but that's part of it, right? And I'd say like that engagement is what brings people 100%. Back.
And again, I don't get paid from comments. I don't get paid for that. But like, well, one, I love it. Like, I genuinely do love answering questions. But two, I build such a fiercely loyal audience because I'm not just making a video and then be like, okay, guys, see you next week, see you in 2 weeks, right? Like if you scroll through all of my videos, even like my videos from 4 years ago, and you scroll through, almost every comment I've responded to, right? And like, and I love, and like the thing is, for me, it's like yes, I know I'm spending a lot of time every day doing this, and I could spend that time making more videos and so making more money, but like with the reason why I started this YouTube channel was because there's so many people who are starting from square one and they don't know where to turn.
Exactly.
So for me, if I can take away 5 minutes out of my day to write out a paragraph, like answering their direct question, they appreciate that so much. Because, you know, there's a lot of general questions that you can Google. Like, oh, what's the TFSA limit for 2023? Google will give you the answer in 10 seconds. But there's a more specific question like, oh, should I transfer my stocks from my margin account to my TFSA account at the beginning of the year when I get a new TFSA room? That's a question that Google probably won't answer. It's a more specific question. But you can ask me and I'll give you a specific answer. And the fact that I, like, you know, like, when my viewers kind of receive that, one, a lot of times they're amazed that I respond to them in the first place, and that I write out such a thorough answer, kind of going through the crossing all the I's and dotting all the T's. Sorry, dotting the I's and crossing the T's, right? Like we were talking earlier about how, like, when we're doing live things, we screw up little like idioms and sayings.
I mess up, and like literally, I would have done it. That's why I don't say a lot of idioms because on the podcast, especially because I'm like, I'm gonna mess it up.
I know, and there we go, right?
And
but
I can't
moving on.
Moving on.
Right? Yeah. So like, it's like you know, I love having that one-on-one engagement, and that's something I never want to lose. Even if I do reach a million subscribers one day, I hope I can keep that. Because
I think that's what sets you apart. Because
really,
the problem I think with a lot of those big content creators, influencers, is they lose touch with their audience.
That's huge.
And that's how usually then you're like, oh, why are they losing followers or why are they not as popular anymore? It's because they lost touch with why they started. And if the whole point of you starting this was to help people, educate people, because you saw how valuable that was in your life and you just started doing that with those interns, then that's an amazing thing. I do the exact same thing. I don't spend that much time, but I have it in my little Asana like to-do list every morning. Look on my YouTube comments and answer as many as I can. And it does take me time.
It takes time,
and some of the questions are either really specific, and so like, and if they are, that's why they're asking me the question, because they can't Google it, and then I have to do a little research. But I actually don't mind, because then I'm like, oh, I've never gotten that question before.
And it keeps you on your toes.
It keeps me on my toes, and I learn a little something probably.
And that's the thing, because now it's kind of like, since you and I we do this every day, we've been exposed to all those really nitty-gritty, kind of obscure, out of left field questions, right? So when we do like a live event and we do like a live Q&A,
I'm like,
nothing can faze me because I've already seen like the craziest questions.
I know.
Right?
Yeah, no, that's I think the best thing. And like I even do that for my investing course. We have a monthly Q&A Zoom. And so I've had the course for almost 3 years now. And I'm like, at this point, because I've done so many of them, it's been really great keeping me on my toes.
Right.
But also I'm like, now you also can kind of see repetitions of what questions people have. And that's also a great way to find other videos, what 100%. I should make a video about, because people keep on asking that. 100%. So clearly they can't find the answer online. I should fill that. Right.
That's honestly, like for me, I would say maybe like 70% of the videos I make, the topics are topics that I want to talk about. And I feel like there's an unmet need. But like the other 30% is just what you said, right? I get the same kind of questions again and again. I mean, people, I'm realizing like so many Canadians are either like, they have like a fuzzy understanding of this, or there's a total misconception. So I'm like, that's a great video to make, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious, how do you determine what you want to make? Like one thing I find with some Canadian content creators, and I even fell into this, situation in a bit, is you feel like, ooh, I could grow my channel more if I didn't just talk about Canadian stuff. Because you do feel like, we kind of talk about like, there's a limitation on how people
there's a ceiling.
There's a ceiling. But for me, what I found is, I mean, there's like a term like niche down to blow up. That's kind of a great thing to do. And for me, I've liked that because a lot of people come to me because I am Canadian. Do you ever kind of think, should I talk about things things that aren't specific Canadian, just so I can grow my audience? Or no, you know what your lane is?
I'm almost always exclusively Canadian, especially when I make my taxes videos or my entrepreneurship videos. Those are all like Canadian specific tax laws, right? Then my investing basics, like, what is a dividend, what's a REIT, that's more universally accepted. But there's even those videos, I still have like a Canadian focus, right?
Yeah.
So I'm the same boat. I felt that temptation, like, I wish I kind of expand to the 10 times larger U.S. market. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, then I would be a tiny fish in a giant pond.
That's true.
And like these people wouldn't like I was saying before, like I don't want someone to follow me and then only watch 10% of my videos.
Yeah.
I want someone to like be like a ride and die and watch every one of my videos. And that's what I can only get together in the Canadian market.
Now, I know one thing that I think brings a lot of people to your channel, even for me, this is probably how we discovered you, quite honestly, is like Googling stuff. I'm like, oh, hey, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Is you talk a lot about investing. Obviously, that's a very hot topic. Everyone wants to know how to invest and build your wealth, but you do it in a way that's not cringe.
Right. No.
Which is good.
That's my baseline, right?
Yeah.
How cringy is this title? How cringy is the thumbnail? If I, as a viewer, would be like shaking my head at this, then I'm not going to do it. Yeah. I'm not going to do it, right?
So tell me a little bit about like, how do you make sure that you aren't going to be like cringy or like all the people that are like a little bit like, ooh, are you a snake oil salesman? Like trying to sell me to buy this thing? And what is your like personal investing philosophy? Like how do you invest and how do you like to educate people to invest?
So for me, the pillar of my, I guess, brand that you could say is authenticity and transparency, right? I will never, ever, ever endorse a stock that I don't personally invest in. I will never make a video about an investing strategy if I don't personally believe in it, right? Like over the past 4 years, I've seen the hype train. I've seen the rise and fall of trending topics. I've seen when people were going crazy about NFTs and crypto and weed stocks and IP and like risky IPOs, right? And I avoided them like the plague. Right? Even though, I would have gone the views. I definitely would have gone the views and the attention, right? I don't believe in those things. And I think they're dangerous, right? And that's why, like, you were actually the very first YouTuber content creator I ever met. And then now, since this past year, I've met like dozens of others. And all the YouTubers that I've met, like yourself and others, I respect you guys because you guys have that credibility. You practice what you preach, right? I know that there's a bunch of other content creators, more so on the U.S. side, but also on the Canadian side.
Yeah, there's
where
everywhere.
You'll see them flip-flop, right?
Yeah,
they'll make one video talking about how dividends are the way to go. And next week, they'll be like, oh, dividends are dead. Next week later, oh, it's only crypto, right? And they're just chasing trends. They're chasing topics. And then at the end of the day, as an audience, you're like, what do you really believe in? Like, what is your true philosophy?
Yeah, who are you? Do you know?
Who are you?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Or they'll be pumping a random IPO, like a new penny stock that they just found. And it's like, really, you just found that?
Yeah.
More likely, and now that we're
they may have gotten paid for that.
Probably, and you and I, we get those emails, right? We get those.
I actually don't. I feel like no one. No, I don't.
They probably go to your junk folder.
They probably go to my junk, or if they're anything, unless it's like delete. Like I'm not. Yeah. No,
100%, right? And it's funny when you see those stories of like I've seen like. As examples, like Tattoo Chef, very good butchers. I got those emails a couple years ago being like, oh, we'll pay you X amount of money to like interview our CEO and blah, 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 right? I was like, no, like I'm not going to sell my credibility. I don't believe in this company. I look at the financials. I look at the metrics. They're spending like 600% of their revenue on marketing.
Ooh, that's
insane. That's a huge red flag. I'm not going to do that. But then I saw other people who did those videos, right? And I'm not gonna like fault them because I get the temptation is there. I was tempted. I'm not gonna lie.
I've had some temptation. It is so hard. I think that's one of the hardest things as someone who got into this business to be transparent and have that integrity. It's hard to maintain that integrity when people have money and they're like, and because we want to make money, we want to build wealth, we want to have a good life. It's hard to make sure that you are like checking yourself and you're like, no. Why did we start this?
Right.
We did not get this in for the money. Because every time, and I don't know if they're in the early days of my blogging, there were. I definitely did some like sponsored blog posts that I'm like, this was just for the money. They do not exist anymore. They are deleted.
Nice.
Thank God. That was when I was really broke, to be fair. But it's hard to sometimes say no to a big wad of cash.
I agree. I agree, right? But I guess I think you and I are similar in that regard. We always with investing, with our brand, with our businesses, it's about long-term mindset, right?
Yeah.
And
you can't buy back your integrity.
Exactly. What makes us special? What makes us stand out? Right? It's not that we're brilliant and that we can like time the market and outsmart Warren Buffett. No. We have where relatable.
Yeah.
We resonate with our audience, and we're sincere and transparent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Once you lose that credibility, you can't get it back.
No.
So even though like a really fat one-time paycheck could be tempting, in the long run, I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So tell me a little bit more about what do you do for investing? Because I know you talk about, I don't know actually, you talk about like dividends a lot. You talk about, and do you do just individual stocks? You do ETFs?
Combination.
What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do?
So for me, I have two main philosophies.
Yeah.
The two main pillars are long-term investing. I do not care about short-term volatility. I don't care about short-term performance. I don't want to get rich overnight. I don't care if a stock will go down 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now. I care how will the stock perform 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So for me, it's all about time in the market versus timing in the market, right? So long-term mindset, I only want to invest in quality, well-established companies that have a long-term track record. They have a history of being profitable and increasing their profits year after year, quarter after quarter, right? Will these companies 10x in 2 years? No. But will they have reliable growth, 8 to 12% a year?
Yeah.
That's perfect. I'm happy. I'm happy with that, right? So long-term mindset is number one. And number two is diversification. And that's in all areas, right? So I do a combination of individual stocks and ETFs, right? I do the ETFs to get the kind of the broad index market exposure. And then within those ETFs, I kind of double down on some of the little gems or particular winners I see in there, right? And it's fine to do that. It's fine to have overlap between your stocks and your ETFs as long as you're aware of that, right?
Yeah. You want to be too heavy somewhere.
Exactly, right? And then I also diversify in terms of like, my asset allocation, right? Like I invest in dividend stocks and growth stocks. I do REITs and more capital appreciation focused ETFs. I invest in geographic diversification. I invest in Canadian and US markets and a little bit of international exposure too. I try to cover all the sectors, right? I love, for example, REITs, like real estate investment, because I am a real estate investor as well. That's another kind of sector of my, right? But like, so I'm a huge proponent of real estate, but I don't want to be all in that sector, right? You have to diversify across, the telecoms, financials, insurance companies,
everybody,
consumer station, all that stuff, right? So for me, it's not, I'm never trying to outsmart everyone. I'm not trying to find those needles in the haystack that will 50x, right? I just want quality companies that I would be proud to own, and that I know they have a long-term future. And again, that being said, even my favorite stock of all time, like something like TD or Procter & Gamble, companies that I love, I never want to have more than, let's say, 6 or 7% weighting in those stocks. I want to diversify it across all those great established companies because let's say, God forbid, something cataclysmic happens and TD stock goes to zero, right? Worst case, that's not going to happen. But if it did, worst case scenario, I lose 6% of my money. Yeah, I'll survive. It'll suck, but I'll survive. Right. Yeah. Meanwhile, a lot of the younger kids or younger investors, they'll be like 60% in Tesla. 40% in Nvidia. And are these quality companies? Overall, I'd say yes. Are they overvalued? Yes. I mean,
I don't trust Elon, so I'm not. I'm not putting my money. That's
a whole other conversation, right? So like even if a company that you know and love, and let's say you are an Elon stan and you believe he's going to go to the moon, even if it is a great company that is, let's say, profitable, even a profitable company can still be severely overvalued, right? Is it worth a $1.5 trillion market cap? I don't know.
I don't know.
That's the thing, right? So.
How do you keep track of everything? Because that's the other thing that, obviously there's so many tools either by software companies or whatever, but you're a spreadsheet person like myself.
Yes,
I'm old. So you just built your own spreadsheet?
School Excel. Well, a combination of things. So I use Excel when I have my own Excel dividend tracker spreadsheet. You've probably seen my YouTube videos. I kind of show it all the time, and I give like a free template for it. But that's a template I personally use. I track all the stocks I bought, all the stocks I buy, all the stocks I sell, all the TVSA and RSP contributions and withdrawals I make, all the how many the number of shares I own, the dividend I receive from them, how many drips I get, what my drip ratio is. Drip meaning like when I get like those automatic dividend reinvestments, right? So you kind of like build compound on autopilot. So that's what I do. That's my main source. But then I also, through my brokerages like Questrade, Wealthsimple, I use those for the more like the live values, right? So I can kind of see like my portfolio performance overall. And then I also use Blossom Social, which is the app that I'm kind of partnered with now. Right. And I'll give a super quick version of what Blossom Social is. It's kind of like, we think of it as the Canadian LinkedIn for Canadian investors, right? So it's kind of a social media platform for Canadian investors. That's half of the app where it's like, you write posts, you can ask questions, people can comment on stuff. But the other half is kind of like a portfolio summary and a portfolio like analysis, right? So that way I can kind of like automatically track how my portfolio is doing on a day-to-day basis. I can see what my current dividend yield is, if I went up or down today across all my brokerages, across all my accounts. So that one's a nice kind of automatic, really quick snapshot summary of my portfolio. But the real meat and bones and meat and potato of my portfolio tracking is Excel, because I have total control and I can do whatever I want with it.
Does it take you a long time to keep things organized and do it? Like, because that's the other thing too. That's why I'm an index investor. I'm like, I want the simplest thing ever. That's why I'm like not into like, I mean, I've got some individual stocks, but in general, and they're just like buy and hold kind of things. But in general, I feel like, it's most people are afraid to I don't want to be a day trader. I don't have time for that. So how long does it take for you to just to do all kind of active management in terms of like tracking things, making your contributions or rebalancing? How long does that take?
For me, it's such a habit at this point. And as long as you do it routinely, like it's kind of like, if you're running a business, your bookkeeping, your expenses, right? If you wait until the end of the year,
it's gonna be
and then you have like a shoebox full of expenses, it's gonna take you days,
Yeah.
right? But you make a habit of doing it once a week, once every 2 weeks. It's really not bad. Like it takes me 10 minutes, right? Like I would say on like a month, maybe 10 minutes a month, just to kind of update my Excel sheet, enter the new drips I receive. If dividends are increased, hopefully they increase, right? I just go through each of them and kind of update that. So it really doesn't take me, as long as you make a habit of it and you make a routine out of it, it doesn't take a whole lot. And then in terms of like researching the stocks, that definitely takes time, right? And you should take the time. If you don't have the time to research stocks, then don't buy individual stocks. Then if you want a more passive, hands-off approach, kind of set and forget it, do like a broad-based index fund, maybe even like an all-in-one comprehensive index fund, right? That's fine, right? Or even something like robo-advising or whatever. You do pay fees for that, but it is kind of a hands-off approach. If you want to invest in the individual stocks, you do have to put in the time. Because remember, you're not like, a stock is not a magical thing. You're not buying, a stock is not just a magical
lottery ticket.
You're buying a piece of a company. So you have to understand how the company works, how the company makes money, what their current situation is, what their future looks like, what kind of projects they're going to work on, how they're handling their debt. Those are all, and you kind of evaluate that in two ways. You go through the financial metrics, right? Reading the financial reports, which again, that can be very intimidating for other people, but you also have to kind of read the like the press releases and the news articles and understand what's going on with the company and what the future holds. Because it's not just like, it's like stocks aren't just like a black box where you put in like numerical metrics in and you like spits out an output. You're buying a company, and companies are unpredictable, but you can kind of make an educated guess of where the future of the company is going to go. And there's no shortcut to that. You have to kind of read the articles and understand what the company does.
I'm curious, how did you learn about this stuff? Because it's like, were you always interested in this? Did you learn about this in school, or did you just educate yourself?
Yeah, no, I educated myself. So when I first got started with investing when I was in university. So the story there is, I mean, I think for most Canadians, I started with mutual funds.
Yeah,
right?
Of course, yeah.
So, and I started with, back then it was ING Direct, now it's Tangerine.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good. Like for me, when I first started with
they were lower
mutual
fee
funds,
than most of the big banks.
They were significantly lower fees, right? And they were way better than like the GIC rates or savings account rates I was getting. And at the end of the year, I got like a nice dividend on top of a little bit of capital appreciation. So it was very exciting, right? And then I kind of, I'm an engineer, so I'm all about maximizing efficiency in terms of my time, my money, my effort, all that kind of stuff, right? And excuse me, I kind of at one point, maybe a couple months into mutual fund investing, I sat down and questioned myself, like, okay, what, like, it's nice that I'm making money off this, but what's in it for ING Direct? Well, Tangerine. What's in it for them? Why are they providing me the service? And at that time, I had this misconception I think a lot of Canadians do, is that like, oh, they get a 2% fee off of the profit they make me. And so they are incentivized to make me money. But no, that's not how it works. They don't take 2% off of the profit. They take 2% off the full amount of money. So whether I gain money or lose money, Tangerine doesn't care. They get their cut. They get their money every single year. So there really isn't a financial incentive for them to make me money. So I started realizing, well, like if there is no incentive, what am I paying this fee for? Like, why am I paying a guaranteed 2% loss no
matter what?
No matter what, right? And I started looking down, like kind of looking into like the weeds of what exactly the portfolio looks like. And it was just a bunch of ETFs and stuff. So I thought to myself, well, why am I paying them 2% every single year when I could just replicate that portfolio for myself and buy the exact same portfolio and keep that money to myself? So that's when I started. That was probably like in third year university, I think, when I bought my very first ETFs and individual stocks. And I still remember to this day. It was TD stock, BMO, Dollarama, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble, and Ryokan and Enbridge. Yeah, and then two other ETFs. And I've never sold any of them. Those are all the companies I bought from day one, and I've never sold them. I've kind of like every year I kind of increased my holding on them. And for me, that was kind of I was lucky because on day one I didn't chase the riskier stocks. I chose the more established blue chip companies. I knew that they weren't. I knew that Coca-Cola wasn't going to 10x overnight, but they've been around for almost 100 years. They are like
they own so many things.
They own so many brands. It's even if like everyone decides that Coca-Cola is unhealthy, we're not going to drink Coke anymore. They own Minute Maid orange juice. They own water. They own like half 30% of the brands you see at the grocery store are owned by Coca-Cola. Right? Yeah, exactly. They have such an untouchable track record. Right? They've been paying dividends for. They've never missed dividend payment in like over 70 years, and they've increased their dividends every single year for I think it's something like 67, maybe even 70 years. Right? So that's amazing. So one thing you get capital appreciation, you get a great passive income through dividends, you get increasing dividends year after year, and as the share price grows and your dividends grow, you're increasing your yield on cost, right? And that's why Warren Buffett, he bought Coca-Cola stock really cheap in the 80s, right? And now, even though like Coca-Cola now has a dividend yield, I think it's around, I guess off the top of my head, like maybe like 3.6%, something like that, right? Warren Buffett's yield on cost, the dividend yield, the income he's earning off of the money he put in is way more than 3%. Right. He's earning probably like 18-20% on top of the great capital gains he's earning, right? So for me, that's why I want to focus on I want to focus on a long-term mindset, and I want to focus on companies that have a good track record of sustainable dividends and increasing dividends. I don't chase the high yields. I don't want a company that can boast like a 9% dividend yield or a 13% dividend yield. That's a trap. Like it's tempting. I get it. You might think, oh my God, I'm getting 12% of my money every year. There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? You might be getting 12% of passive income, which is taxed if it's not in a TFSA or whatever, right? But that's probably most likely that company is spending more money on dividends than they're bringing in revenue. Yeah, that's why. So they're really like they're bleeding themselves dry. Yeah. So yeah, you're getting 12% dividend yield
for now,
but the stock is going down in value like 15-20% a year. Yeah. So in the end, you're losing money, right? Yeah,
it's hard to not chase this kind of thing. You mentioned earlier that you're also into real estate. Did you want to kind of talk about like do you own a property or?
Yeah. So I don't own the house I live in. So I'm of the mindset. I guess this is kind of one of those controversial, debatable topics.
No, I know lots of people who do this.
I'm of the mindset where I don't think of a principal residence as an investment. Not to say it's a bad idea. Yeah. I mean, you own a principal residence if you want the stability, the pride of ownership, all that control to do whatever you want. That makes sense. But don't fool yourself into thinking this is an investment. You're not buying it as an investment, right?
You're buying
until you. I mean, it could be investment years down the line when you sell, but that's not why you bought it, right? An investment is when you put money aside today with the expectation that you're going to make more money in the future. Until you decide to sell your primary residence, it's just an expense, right? Yeah. So for me, I rent where I live. But all the properties I own are rental properties. So over 4 years ago in 2019, I bought my very first rental property in Kitchener-Waterloo. And then a couple years later, me and my brother, we partnered and we bought another rental property. And then we bought a third rental property based on the appreciation of the first house, which is one of the real powers of real estate investing, is the power of leverage. Yeah. Right? Because not only do you get to benefit from the money you put in, you get to benefit from the bank's money. Yeah. And if you make a 20% down payment, like most of the 4 times the money you put in is the bank's money, and you get to benefit from 100% of the money, even though only 20% of it came from you, right? Yeah. And there's no other asset class that offers that level of leverage, right? Yes, you can do, you can do margin calls and whatnot and borrow money for investing, but I don't recommend that. Yeah, no. Like investing is risky enough. Stock market investing is risky enough.
Most people should not do that.
You should only invest in money that's your money, not a loan, and money that you're comfortable to potentially lose. And money that you don't need for the next 5-10 years at least. But with real estate, like you're able to benefit from a huge amplifying power of leverage. And here's a really cool example is that, like, for example, my first rental property I bought 4 years ago, right? And then during the pandemic, obviously house prices kind of shot up, right? So my house that I bought in 2019 essentially doubled in value in like three years. So how can I kind of benefit from that growth? I could either sell the house, right? I don't want to do that because if you sell a house, you pay significant capital gains tax,
realtor
fees, right? So that's a huge chunk of money. It's still very profitable, right? But I didn't want to do that. I still wanted to benefit from the increased equity, the increased value of the house. But I have a great tenant. I don't want to kick them out. I want them to keep, living there for the next 20 years and collect that passive income. So what I did, I went to my bank and I did a refinance. I did a HELOC. I basically went to the bank and told them, hey, look, my house is worth double what I bought it for. I want to take on a second mortgage. I want to refinance and borrow against that new increased equity, the new increased value of the house. So they did. I got a HELOC. I basically got like $100,000 loan, and I used that to buy my third rental property, right? So that the amazing thing with real estate is that you can gain such incredible momentum because the first house took me years to save up for that down payment. Second house was a little easier because I partnered with my brother. We were 50-50 partners. So instead of, so we put in, instead of saving years for $100,000 down payment, we only had to save $50,000 each. So that was a little easier to do, right? The third house we bought without using any of my own money. It was just money from the loan of the value of the first house.
Oh, wow.
Right? And I'm going to keep this going. Like a couple years down the line, my second rental property is going to increase in value. I'm going to take a second loan on that, use that loan to buy a fourth house. A couple years later, do the same thing. My third house will grow in value, refinance, buy a fifth house, and keep on going. I mean, eventually, I'm going to get tapped out and the banks are not going to, I'm going to have so many mortgages at that point that the banks are going to lend it to me. But as long as you run the numbers and you use those loans for smart investment or business purposes. Not only is that you can kind of like expedite the acquisition of a rental property by years, right? You can accelerate that by years, but also that the interest you pay on those loans is 100% tax deductible as long as you use it for investment or business purposes, right? So a lot of, especially now, I mean, everyone's hurting with real estate interest rates, right? My interest rate from one of my properties started at 1.5%. Now I'm paying 6%, right? That hurts. But I'm in the lucky position where even though, yes, the interest rate now is 6%, because it's a rental property, all of the interest is tax deductible. So in actuality, if I'm at a 40% tax bracket, after taxes, my effective interest rate is not 6%. I'm only really paying maybe 3.2%. And for me, 3.2% is still really good. It's almost free money. Right? So that's why I definitely, I'm a huge fan of stock market investing, and that's a huge part of my channel. But don't neglect real estate. In terms of like pure dollar amounts, real estate is my real estate portfolio is significantly bigger than my stock market portfolio. For me, real estate is the real fundamental backbone of my long-term retirement plan, my long-term wealth plan.
But what's your experience been as a landlord, though? Because I feel like a lot of people are resistant to real estate because, I mean, unless you hire a company that does that for you, but again, then that's eating into your profit.
Absolutely.
You're your own landlord? You do it all yourself?
Manager.
You've had a good experience?
Yeah,
because you always hear horror stories.
I'm lucky. So also the good thing is like me and my brother, we're partners on this, right? So we can kind of share the load between the two of us. If a toilet needs to be fixed or we need to replace something, either I'll drive over to the house or my brother will drive over. Plus, I mean, it's definitely gone easier since I quit my job because now if I have to, drive to my rental property, I don't have to ask my boss for permission. I don't have to take a day, use up a vacation day for that, right? I can just go and fix the issue myself. And me and my brother, we're generally pretty handy. Most easy things we can kind of handle on our own. So we haven't needed to use a property manager. Obviously, if it's like a plumbing issue or like an electrical issue, we hire someone for that. And it sucks paying, $300 just for a plumber just to show up, right? But you got to do it. It's your responsibility as a landlord, right? So far, with the 3 rental properties between me and my brother, we've been able to manage it between the two of us without a property manager. If we get the 4th one, we'll see. We might at that point we might have to reevaluate and kind of determine maybe we need a property manager. But that's one of the reasons why we only buy in Kitchener-Waterloo, because my brother lives there and I live there half the time. So it's easy. If I were, and again, there's always opportunities other places. You can get way better cash flow if you buy like in Windsor or Sarnia or something further away, right? But I don't want to drive 2 hours to fix toilets, right? Or I have to hire a random property manager that I don't know, and like, how am I going to trust? Am I going to trust them? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So, for me, yes, even though Kitchener Waterloo is a little bit more expensive, I have the peace of mind knowing that one, I know the area, I know the economy, I know that vacancy rates are low, so I'm going to find quality tenants, and two, I'm able to kind of fulfill my landlord duties without having to outsource it to a property manager. But eventually it's going to get to the point where you're stretched too thin and you have to do that at that point. But make sure that's your cash flow. As long as it's still profitable, it's definitely worth peace of mind.
Whenever I talk to people that own properties, I always think, like, gosh, maybe I should, like, I've been toying with the idea, and I think part of the reason that me and my husband have not like done that, besides owning our principal residence, is he is not interested in being a landlord. So it would be me doing all of that, and I'm like, also, no, I don't know if I want to do that, but that's still. It's always intriguing.
Depends.
Before, like, I was seriously looking at, like, when we lived in our townhouse, and right before the pandemic, I bought a like, it was like real estate for dummies. I'm like, let's just like read all the things and just like get a feel for what's going on and stuff. Like, it was a real estate for dummies in Canada. It was like very niche or whatever.
Okay, that's good.
I read it, and then the pandemic happened, and then our focus, our priorities shifted a little bit.
That's for sure.
And we decided to instead just buy a house for a lot of money.
Any regrets?
Now I love it here.
Oh, there you go. It's a
but like
house.
you said, it's like this, like our townhouse doubled, and that was awesome. So that was a great buy. I'm really glad that we did that, and then it enabled us to buy this house.
Right.
Now we have
but then this house also doubled when you.
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, the plan is to stay here for as long as we absolutely can, like minimum 10 years. We've been here almost 2 years, so 8 years to go. But yeah, like you said, I don't consider a principal residence, like, we didn't buy this because this is going to be no, we wanted to live here.
Right.
Like, we wanted a homestead. We wanted that security and just to have the flexibility of being homeowners. But
exactly.
The only way you can make money is if you sell. And believe me, there's so many boomers out there I talk to all the time. They don't want to sell their house because it is their home.
I get it.
Even though it's like a $2 million house now.
Yeah.
Try to tell someone who's lived there for 50 years, 40 years to sell it for the money and live in a condo. It's not going to happen.
That's a really good point, right? Like, investments you should never be emotionally attached to your investments. You get emotionally attached to your home.
Of course you do.
Of course you do.
It's
right?
your home.
You build, you raise your kids there. You build lifetime memories, right?
Yeah.
So that's why on that's criteria alone, 100%. It's not an investment because you're emotionally involved, right?
Yeah.
My stocks, like if someone, and that's one thing I see all the time, and we were talking about kind of like the content creation world, right? About like crypto and stuff, and people get emotionally, it becomes a part of their identity. Like, oh, I'm a crypto bro. Yeah. And if you insult Bitcoin or Dogecoin,
they'll
they
take
get
it personally.
Offended,
yeah.
Right?
You're like, you didn't build this or make this. Yeah.
I love TD stock. I love Enbridge stock. I love Ryokan. If you insult Ryokan, okay, that's fine.
It's like, I don't care.
Good for you. More for me then. I'll buy it. I'll buy your share.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got that's a big part of the investing game with any kind of investment, real estate, stock market, whatever. You have to get your emotions out of the equation.
Absolutely.
And you need that discipline to kind of stay the course, especially, I mean, when times are good, it's so easy to get excited and carried away and think that oh my God, I've got it all figured out. I was like everyone else is a fool for not investing. But when times are now, times are tough, and you're seeing red losses across the board, that's where you need that discipline. Yeah. And it's easy for a new beginner to kind of listen to us say on a video like, ignore the short-term volatility, focus on the long-term. Hearing it is one thing. When it's your money on the line and you're seeing that for the first time, it's scary.
It's hard to put it into practice. But what I will say, especially as someone who I think I started investing now, maybe, when did I start investing? Maybe 25. So it's been like 12 years.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of ups and downs. It gets better with age and time, right? Because you get that experience and you get to when things are tough and you stick it out and you just don't sell and you just stay put, then things get better. It builds your resilience.
100%.
So the next time it happens, you have that experience and then you can remember what we did last time and all the good advice that we took. Let's keep doing that. But it's hard when you're right at the start.
The way I look at it, I think of if it's a quality stock, a quality company, and you believe in the long-term future of it, you should not freak out when the stock price drops. You should look at it as an opportunity to capitalize on that discount. I look at it the same way as a house, right? Let's say you bought a house and then I know in like, let's say we were in US, right? And in 2008, housing market crashed and house prices across the board plummeted by like 30, 40%. Did your house lose 40% of the windows? Did the walls collapse? Did the roof fall on your head? No, the house was the same fundamental asset. It was still worth the same amount, just that on paper, the current market value of the house dropped by 40%. But the house is still structurally sound. So don't sell. Don't freak out and sell. Live in the house, hold on to it, and wait for it to recover. It's the same thing with stocks. As long as it's a quality company that will last. You don't want to catch a falling knife. Like just because the stock is dropping by 30% doesn't mean it's a discount. It could mean like there's some fundamental.
There's something fundamentally wrong with it.
There might be something wrong, right? And the company might be in real trouble. Right? But if it's a company that's been around for 160 years and they're profitable year after year, and they have one. Maybe they still have a profitable quarter, but they didn't meet earnings expectations.
That's okay.
That's fine. That's fine.
Like
right?
sometimes it's like just a simple thing of like they change CEOs,
right?
And then it's like, oh, people are like, oh, there's a new person in town, but then it's like doesn't change the quality. Like the CEO can be fired if they suck.
That's true.
It's not means the company's gonna go down necessarily.
Yeah.
But so it's just good to keep that in mind. Wow, I think I can keep you here forever. But I think what people would really get value out of is checking out all of your amazing videos on your channel. You have so many great topics that you cover. You really cover all the basics and then some, and lots of specific things as well. Where can people find more information about you? Follow you on the Instagram, the YouTube. Where can they find you?
So I'm lucky. I want to keep my brand name, my handle constant across the board. It's Canadian T-shirt on Instagram, on YouTube. Twitter is actually Canadian Shirt.
Right.
But
Are you still doing Twitter?
I have honestly I have it just reserved so no one else can take it from
same.
me,
I'm like,
right?
I don't know what I'm doing there. I don't know. I hate
I've
the
never
change.
used Twitter for my personal life.
I didn't. I liked it before.
Oh, you did?
It got mucked up. Now it's
it's
weird.
It was never part of my life.
Fair enough.
So for me, it was more just so
you
no
don't want
steal
someone to
from
like
me, right?
pretend they're
so
you
for me, by far, YouTube is my #1 platform. That's where I make my videos. That's where I'm most responsive with my. If you have a question,
you're gonna answer.
Write a comment on YouTube videos, and I'll answer it within like a day or two. Right?
Oh my gosh.
If you have a more sensitive question, message me on
Instagram. You had a specific membership with your YouTube. What's that about?
Oh yeah. So I do. So 3 years ago, I started a members only program where basically I charge $5 a month or $1 a week. Where if you want to see my full portfolio, like I do a full like breakdown showing every single stock and ETF I own in my TFSA, in my RSP account. I show all of it, and then every single month I make a video or two showing exactly like a 15-minute video of what stocks I'm buying this month, why I'm buying it. I do a portfolio summary, how it fits into my new portfolio, how I'm like readjusting things. So the way I kind of position that is, I've done a few like public and free portfolio reveals, but I don't want to clutter my channel with like, oh, what stocks am I buying in September 2022? Because a couple weeks later, no one's gonna care. Right? I want to make my videos I want to focus on like evergreen content. I want to make my videos like that are. I want to make standalone, self-contained lessons that are relevant and useful 5 years down the line. Like even like now, to like on a weekly basis, 3 out of the 5 most popular views on my channel on any given week are like 3 or 4 years old. Right. And that's really what I want to focus on. I don't want to have like trendy kind of really short shelf life videos. Right. So. That's why I really want to kind of separate that from my main public channel. If people are interested in what stocks I'm buying and they want to see a deep dive in my portfolio, they can do my members only video.
Yeah, amazing.
For the everyday people who just want to learn how stock market works, how investing works, how taxes work, watch my public and free videos.
Perfect. And there's so much great stuff there. So highly recommend it. Well, Adrian, thank you so much for coming by to the studio to be on the show. It was so great having you on.
Absolutely.
We'll have to have you on again in the future.
Can't wait for round 2. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And that was episode 381 with Adrian Barr, the founder and host of the YouTube channel Canadian in a T-shirt. You can find him at youtube.com/@Canadian T-shirt. You can also find him on Twitter at Canadian Shirt and on Instagram at Canadian T-shirt. And I will link to all of these things in the show notes for this episode, jessicamoorhouse.com/381. And just a reminder, if you want to find any episodes ever, because there are a lot of episodes, we're creeping close to 400. Oh my gosh. Just go to jessicamoorhouse.com/podcast or jessicamoorhouse.com/ the number of that episode if you know it. And I'm not bothered if you are looking for a particular episode and you cannot remember what the number is or who was on the show. Like I get emails and DMs DMs all the time from listeners being like, I think you did an episode on, mortgages or something, whatever. Yeah, I don't mind. Let me know, like ask me and I'll be like, oh, it's this one. Cause I don't know how, because my memory is not the best with things, but I've got actually pretty good. I don't have a good short-term memory, but I sure do have a good long-term memory. And I remember every single guest and episode I've ever done. And I've been doing this for 8 years. So hit me up. I'm happy to navigate, or even if you're like looking for an episode on a specific topic, I can show you, because I've pretty much done it all. So, DM me. You can find me on Instagram at Jessica I. Morehouse, or through the podcast Instagram at More Money Podcast, or just email me, jessica@jessicamorehouse.com. I don't mind. Do it. Go ahead. Or there's a contact form on my contact page as well, whatever you're more comfortable with, jessicamorehouse.com/contact. Okay, so just a few things to share as always, so do not go away. Do you want to figure out where your money is going? Do you want to organize your finances once and for all? Do you want to feel less anxious about your money? Well, I have a great tool for you. My collection of budget spreadsheets, which you can find at jessicamorehouse.com/shop. These new and improved budget spreadsheets have helped thousands of people over the years, and these are honestly the budget spreadsheets that me and my husband still use today. They come in Google Sheets and Excel. They also come with a comprehensive video tutorial to show you exactly how it works, and they're very easy to use. Not only that, I've got versions for pretty much any scenario. So if you're an employee, I've got a budget spreadsheet for that. If you are self-employed, I've got a budget spreadsheet for that. If you're in a couple and one of you is an employee and one of you is self-employed, I've got a budget spreadsheet for that. I've got 7 different budget spreadsheets for any kind of situation. So no matter what's going on in your life and your income, I've got a budget spreadsheet for you. So if you want to take action and see some progress with your finances, this is one really easy step that you can take right after listening to this episode. Just go to jessicamorehouse.com/shop, find the right budget spreadsheet for you, and then start making some moves that future you will be really, really thankful for. Okay, firstly, I just want to remind you, because, this week we don't have a new book I'm giving away, though I have more to come. Don't worry. I've got 4 more books and authors coming on this show. So, just stay excited for that. But I have a lot of books that have already been featured on the show that I am giving away copies of. So just go to jessicamorehouse.com/contest to enter to win any of those. Just as a reference, if you want me to go through them, I will. But I've got Gabe Dunn's Bad with Money, Eleanor Tucker, her book Thanks for Sharing, Peter Atwater's The Confidence Map, Manisha Thakur's Money Zen, Ao Owaduni's The Immigrant View, Mick Heyman's Mellow Your Money, and Mary Sanders, who was on the show last week, 9 Lives by 35. And yeah, that's a lot. I can't believe I just remembered all of that off the top of my head. How crazy. So speaking of YouTube, because we did talk a lot about YouTube, just letting you know, I do have a YouTube channel. You can find me. I think it's just youtube.com/ at Jessica Morehouse, maybe? I don't know. But honestly, if you just go to Google YouTube Jessica Morehouse or just in YouTube Jessica Morehouse, I will come right up. And also, if you don't know, I have another YouTube channel specifically for the podcast, just because I set it up years ago because I had a few people ask, hey, can you put your podcast on YouTube? Because I like to listen on YouTube. I know, whatever you want to do. And there was a year that I did do a video podcast. I want to say it was a while ago, before anyone was really doing it. That's why I didn't really do that well. Probably back in 16, 17, 18, I don't know. But so there is some video podcasts. I always kind of, think about doing it again. But again, it's just a lot of work. So right now it's just audio, and you can, it's connected to my main channel. So you can look at other channels or whatever. And then it's just on there, or just go More Money Podcast YouTube and you'll find it. You'll find it there. So to tease who I have on the show next week, it's a friend of mine. I've known her for, how long have I been blogging? I think 12 years. I think I've known her for as long as I've had my blog, because we kind of came up at the same time. And she was a very early guest on my podcast when I started this. She was on the show back in February 2016. And oh my gosh, it is crazy to think how our lives have changed since then. a lot has happened in that time frame, and really good things. It's exciting to see, look at where we were and look at where we are now. And she's just been doing so many incredible things. I'm talking about Stephanie O'Connell Rodriguez. She started out similar to me, a personal finance blogger, but she's kind of pivoted, and I'm in love with her content now to really talk about ambition and women. And that is what we're going to focus on next week. And I cannot wait to share such an incredible episode. So you're going to love it. So stick around for next week's episode. It is going to be amazing. But with that, I'm going to have to leave you, love you, and leave you. Big shout out to my podcast editor, Matt Rideout. And yeah, have a good rest of your week. Stay safe. It's cold season or flu season or COVID season. People have been getting it again, so just be cautious. Wash your hands and, do all the things. But yeah, I will see you here next Wednesday. And until then, well, enjoy your life. All right, bye.